Good afternoon, committee members and other parties of interest. The reconvened evaluation committee meeting for RFP 24-24791 recovered materials processing facility services for the Solid Waste Management Department will be held by means of communications media technology. Active participation will be for committee members only. Provisions have been made for members of the public desiring to have access to view the meeting. Public attendees must remain on mute with cameras off. For the record, this meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be available after the meeting has ended. Please be advised that the cone of silence is still in effect and shall end the earlier of 5 business days after the county posts its notice of intent to award the contract associated with this solicitation, or on the date the procurement solicitation is canceled by the county. All questions, comments, and concerns must be directed to my attention. My name is Lisa Demina, and I am the chief buyer for this project. Again, for the record, this meeting is being recorded and has been publicly noticed. At this time, I will ask each committee member to introduce themselves for the record, beginning with the committee chairperson, Stephanie.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Watson. I'm the section manager of the Sustainable Materials Management section in the Solid Waste Management Department of Hillsborough County.
Good afternoon, Brian Johnson, Division Director, Business and Support Services, Solid Waste Management Department.
John Muller, Director for Facilities and Real Estate, Hillsborough County.
I'll now ask the advisor to introduce himself.
Good afternoon, Damian Trammell, the Solid Waste Management Department Director.
And I'll now ask my director to introduce himself.
Scott Stromer, Director of Procurement.
I will turn the meeting over to committee chairperson Stephanie Watson to lead the discussion and evaluation of the best and final offers. But before I do so, Scott, would you like to address the committee members?
Yeah, so you got a lot of information. So my advice to you is, Stephanie, you're gonna be gone next week and you're coming back, you said 20th?
Right.
Okay. I want to make sure that you have enough time to go through the information that you received today, go through the documentation provided, so you're very deliberate. You have the time you need to kind of go through all of that. My advice is that that you not score today, because I don't think you're prepared yet. You've got some numbers to go through. Obviously, we have some prices and costs to deal with because we have to score the cost portion of it. So we need to figure that out. So my advice is, Lisa, I think we looked at availability. It looks like June 30th. We've got some availability that day, which would give you lots of time to go through it. And again, you can communicate with us. It gives you time to communicate with Damien if you have questions, as an advisor individually. Remember that you are also restricted. You may only talk about this amongst each other in this public setting. So when you go back to your normal lives in the workplace, you may not discuss this project or any of this proceeding, out there, only here. But you can talk to Damien individually if you want to, get his advice and his counsel. Lisa's here, I'm here as well. If you need additional information, we always have the opportunity, we can send notes to the vendors if there's some clarification. I think you got some great clarification today. These interviews were very, very helpful. So that would be my advice. I want to make sure you have the time and you're not pressured, because looking at what we just saw, and that's my reason for sitting, I wanted to see what was coming in. I don't know that you'd be prepared. You're really not prepared to score today. So now, having said that, if there's information that you'd like for us to go get, if there's a gap that you'd like us to deal with, if you know it now, let us know. If not, communicate, it's about Does that make sense to you? I want to make sure you have enough time to really dig into this stuff, because it's a long-term relationship. There's a lot of dollars at stake. These companies have done a great deal of work, just a mass amount of work of setting up these plans. Their approaches to the facilities. This is such an impactful thing. I just want to make sure you have enough time I do not want you to hurry it. So that would be my advice.
I second that advice. I think that's good advice.
There you go. So,
Well-
yeah, but you're welcome to discuss those. So
Yeah,
take your time.
no, I'm fine with, wait until 30th. But, if we can talk about, you want to cover anything? So I'd like to, we can cover a few things.
Yes.
What do you want to cover first?
Well, Brian, are you supportive of waiting until 30th to take more time to review the information?
You lean back, so let's lean.
He does up a lot. I lean back so that she can, we can get directly with you, but yes, I appreciate the extra consideration and I think it will be very helpful to do so.
Okay, so maybe what we'll do is we'll kind of summarize what we heard today, what we extracted from the proposals, what we heard during the Q&A and kind of clarify it. And it sounds like John, maybe you would like to start.
Well, yeah, I heard, I guess, we'll cover the kind of one topic that comes up a little bit is land. I didn't hear anything today that was, everything seems to be as both proposers planned on schedule. You had an acquisition done by both companies. And they have, they provided their deed. You had Waste Management present their ordinance for the right-of-way vacate. They did state that they bought the land in fee simple. We suggested they add that documentation. And based on the ordinance, we suggested also that they include any communications they're having with the city water department about extensions that relate to that ordinance. So, but the ordinance does state in there, there's some wording in there about the contemplation that they plan to construct over that vacated right of way, which is why it was important that they were simple. So I didn't hear anything unusual with regards to that.
Can you tell us what that term means, be simple?
Oh, sorry, fee simple, they don't outright, no. So they are working towards their permits. That's a 5-year, they had 5 years to work towards permits, but they are indicated they're already have started that process. So.
Okay.
All right, what about you?
No, those are my outstanding questions. Just clarity on the status of the property. I understood the vacation took place. I didn't know if we simple meant just to verify that Falcone's purchase went through as opposed to first right of refusal, which I think was their first original status. So good clarity.
Yeah, and then I'll mention one other thing with property. So Scott, wasn't in our original proposal, but I think would be helpful maybe from the technical advisor to get some assistance for the team here. You don't have to answer the question today, but one proposer brought up, well, we're going to bring additional tax value of X dollars per year, which I'm going to take a guess, and don't hold me to this number, but I'm thinking a $60 million investment. The other proposer indicated, well, we're also making an investment, $80 million. Okay, so both of them are making significant investments. Both of them will have tangible property tax values to pay. Both of them talked about their depreciation schedules and so on and so forth. So that wasn't part of it. I just want to note that and again, it'd be good to get some advice on it. But it looks to me like they're both incurring the same type of situation. So just noting that, just keep in mind that one put something in the proposal that wasn't necessarily requested for the original proposal, just trying to show total value. The other one didn't necessarily do that because it wasn't necessarily asked. So, but as we weigh when you start looking at the financial sections, just keep that in mind, which is why we asked those questions to make sure that we knew what both had with regards to that. So that would just be one comment I have.
So I'll just say to that, I think when that presentation was given, the party that didn't call that out, they kind of distinguished that this is not
Right.
additional revenue. However, we did want to point this out, which I think that's a fair statement. Obviously, both very substantial investments.
Yeah. Very.
That there will be property tax implications, which obviously is not gonna, and they made the point, it would not benefit solid waste directly. It's gonna be under the general fund.
Right, and it gets kind of, because then you get into, one might have tax credits based on where they're going and the other may not, or they both. So it's just, it goes down a path. So just to put that out, that was part of what came out of the discussion today. I think we were more focused on, what were the guarantees and what were the changes in fee structure.
Yeah, it is, I think that was the purpose too, right? So I think the problem text that, that's just a value that you're speaking of, that's added to his return as a whole, right? Not necessarily the sales department. But yeah, I totally agree. I don't know if we need an expert to come in and advise us on it. It's good. Yeah.
I would, my advice to you is when you're going through the materials and you're starting to get your thoughts together, because I do want you to come back on the 30th ready to score and really have that meaningful discussion about where they would land. And because things have really changed in the proposals, we're gonna ask that you're gonna have to take a look at the entire thing. I think that you're probably gonna have to reevaluate. Now, your previous scores, I mean, you set those so you can go back and either confirm them, but I think you do need to take a look at all of the criteria again. But remember, eventually you have to get to that cost component, which is a formula. So it's gonna be that, really that net cost to the county.
That's where I'm headed, is
Yeah.
just making sure that we are consistent
Right.
and clear.
Right.
And that those that are listening, from or understand that, yes, we heard you, we're not ignoring, it's all great. But we're gonna make sure it's apples to apples and both are.
So I got a question for you. So if there's a formula, how do we add that? How do we add?
Or maybe we
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a discussion. So I think when you're going through it, this is why I think guarantees are important. Because you have to be able to count on that.
Right, and also things that
Right.
we ask for, like, to your point, if the intention of the RP is the beneficiary, strictly related to the solid waste component. Right, because and looking at an investment in property and equipment over 30 years, a lot of things can change and vary. And I don't know if we can control those things.
I want to say it very clearly,
Yeah.
I would not
Right.
include the property tax in your revenue.
Exactly.
That's really a separate animal. They kind of call that out in cities more isolated, so please don't spend a lot of time on that.
Okay, thank
But
you.
ultimately, you do need to get to what's that net cost? And the way you're gonna be able to get there is the ones that are guaranteed that, yes, I can count on this. When it becomes speculative, it's like if you're gonna get excess tonnage, you don't know that that's gonna happen. And because your award decision or your selection decision is gonna be based on that in part, based on that formula, that weighting, you can only go with that is absolute.
So let me ask you, so the host fee was not part of the original fee. Do we need to get some, right?
You have it in their
That's
proposal.
it. That's it.
Yeah, that's all, both companies did a good job of explaining what their strategy is. Just keep in mind which ones you can, the revenue that you can count on.
Right.
The one that's speculative is entirely dependent on third party. You really don't, the county doesn't have any control over that. You don't know what it's gonna be.
Right.
So again, just speaking generically,
I got you.
if you have two proposals and one company says, yes, we're gonna give you this and it's based on, Harvey doing this, you don't know if Harvey's gonna do that. But if somebody says, listen, we're gonna give you this and it's guaranteed regardless of what Harvey does, then you can count on that, thank you.
Let's give an example. When they talk about the, bringing in additional equipment, new equipment to process film. Right? That is not a guarantee. That's not a guarantee. I don't see that as a guarantee. Meaning that, when you add that to the index, all right, it's not a guarantee that we're gonna recover that cost. Is that what you're referring to, Scott?
No, mine's more probably on the host fees, that's probably the cleanest, but yes, there are those other things that. Again, if it's not guaranteed that yes, no matter what you do, county, you're gonna get this, then you really have to go revert back to that original. You have to go back to the processing fee, because that's guaranteed.
That would be anything associated with marketing, you still have to be a guarantee.
other than, I would say what's in the RFP itself, that's structured,
That's right.
that's already there, that's already programmed, because both parties are gonna have to do that, that's a mandatory. Anything above and beyond that would be extra. And that's why I say, I really want you, and I'm not an expert in this field,
Right.
so that's why I wanna give you the time. Cause you need to get into that to find out, what are the implications there, can you count on?
Yeah, one procedural question. So if we ask for any additional information today, do we have to do an addenda? Is there any call for it? Or they can just upload it to their, if we ask them for an additional?
I think I can, if it's okay, I would do it by email.
We can reach out to them, we get the.
Okay, so I'll send it, if I am requesting for something specific, I'll send it directly to you.
Yes, send it to each committee member needs to contact me individually.
Yes, I know, yeah. I'll go to it.
And as long as it's within the framework of the original
Yeah.
RFP and this, addendum 4
Yeah.
5, obviously for this best.
Minor related to.
But I would suggest that, you really got the information you needed today,
Right.
right? So you could, both parties could give you in writing the question, but you have a recording. of it. You have the answers, that you probably needed. And we can get you a transcript of that, I think, of this session.
Okay.
And you'll have access to that. So
Yeah.
before you go and ask for additional information, I would ask that you go back to the presentation. So they were very thorough. And they were very forthcoming on their answers. And I would do that first rather than add to the record where you're now asking them and then we'll go down this path. So
And that's part of the agreement, right? So this will be part of the actual agreement, the transfer.
I don't know if it'll be part of the agreement, but you could make it part of it based on this, because you eventually, remember, once it's approved by the board, whichever your selection is, and if the board concurs, then you have to negotiate that contract. And so then you can get into some of those finer details.
Gotcha. Got it. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Scott, I hear what you're saying is they gave thorough information. My only concern is that everybody maybe hears things differently. I would like to see like a submittal with a contract term, an example. I think we agree that the firm is qualified to perform, but can they guarantee, check yes or no? How would they guarantee and how would they provide it? I think it's a lot to whittle back through for different people and who hear different things, but I'm open to the group things.
The only thing I'll tell you is there's no change in the proposals. So the answer's here, and if it's not clear here, and I think the language in there in both firms' responses are fairly clear. I would be very mindful that if you go back and ask questions, there's not an opportunity to go, oh, yes, what we meant was, yes, we are guaranteeing.
Okay.
Because I can't allow that. So
So I
you
think.
need to go to this response first,
Right.
go to these answers here, and if there's conflict between that, I think we could get clarification on that. But I do not want to have the opportunity for any kind of technical leveling where a firm is allowed now to, well, you want to do this.
Gotcha.
And this is for the firms that are maybe listening. Don't read into this discussion of who said what from the different firms, right? So don't assume that our discussion here, don't draw anything from that of what we heard from these firms, I think this committee, and you were very diligent on the last go around of this, you're very diligent now. You're just making sure that you have all the pieces you need to make the decision, and I appreciate that. But just be very mindful of that. I don't want to provide an opportunity for somebody to change their proposal, because that is a very material change. That if you're going to offer certain things, and then the guarantees are going to be really critical, and that's it. And you were masterful in how you asked those questions. But the clarification only really kind of come in if there's a conflict from what was said here from what they presented. Okay.
So I got you now. I think the challenge for the committee is going to be determine what's guaranteed and what's not, right? And that's what you all gonna have to determine. You're right. There's two parts to that. We have the actual spell and we have video, right? We put those two together. We should have their response. And if it's not guaranteed, if you need some clarity, then I guess we can have some work.
Arguably, and you may see it differently, but I think it's fairly clear. Based on the submittals and what was said here, where the guarantees are when you look at the words in the, in the responses.
I think one of the variables that I saw was the contract term. One proposer thinks it's 25 and then sometimes it's 15. So I think we can tease that out by listening again, because that's probably would come out.
So what is the term?
15 plus 10 now.
15 with 2 5 years.
Yeah, so that's probably, yeah.
that's,
I thought there were two,
There were two
so that's probably where
extensions,
that's coming from. So that's probably a fairly benign. Yeah, we should be fine.
Yeah.
Should be fine. Yeah, but take your time, go through the information, and if something sparks you funny, you'll have access to the recording. If Lisa, we can get that transcript as well, and just make that available to all the committee members as well, and Damien too, as the advisor. That would be great. I really appreciate your work on this, and for those that are still on the call, I do appreciate everyone's effort, but this, I know it's been a process, but please know that we appreciate the effort, and we know that it takes a tremendous amount of time. It's very easy for us to come up with ideas and send something out as an RFP. It's a dramatically different thing to respond to those things and invest that time and money. And then if you aren't selected, you don't recover the costs of, whatever that was. And we know that this can be a difficult venture. So I want to make sure everyone understands that. And your time, you have regular jobs. And I appreciate the time you put into this as well. So.
Thank you, Scott. Did the committee have any thing they wanted to chat about, or it sounds like we kind of are have the next couple of weeks. It's depending on the confirmation of the June 30th meeting to go through the proposals again, the VAPO, the original, and then the recording. Get the best understanding for ourselves of what information was presented, and then come on the 30th ready to score.
Now, does that give you enough time when you get back to, because I don't want you reading this stuff when you're on vacation. I would never ask that. So, does that give you enough time?
Yes, I already kind of contemplated, I can clear my calendar the week of the 23rd and really focus on it and make sure I have the information distilled from today and be ready for the 30th. So that does.
So the only meeting in July is, I think, July 18th, if I'm not mistaken. I think, is it July 18th?
Well, yeah, I think so. 18.
So if the committee does meet on June 30th, there's an opportunity, we may still be able to get that. I'd like to be able to try to get whatever your recommendation is at that point. So I would anticipate probably at least a couple hours, for your session to really kind of go through this to see if we're ready for that. If something happens and, things happen all the time, family stuff or whatever, let us know. If you need more time at the 30th, let us know as soon as possible so that we can try to make that adjustment. But that would be the first opportunity to get something before would be July 16th.
16th, yeah.
The next would be, there's 2 meetings in August, so we have that. But obviously Damien, in the Operation Solid Waste, this is a very important project. We need to get this moving as quickly as possible. But without compromising the quality of your evaluation. So ultimately you drive that. If you need more time, even beyond the 30th, let me know, let Lisa know you need more time.
We'll do our best to make that date, understanding that it's important. So
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very good.
in ways as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. All right, so I will consider the meeting completed and we will get the recording of this meeting posted as soon as possible. I will schedule the reconvened meeting for June 30th. And if any committee member needs clarification of any conflicts, please email me directly. Thank you all for attending. I'll now end the meeting.